The Hedge Knight is George R.R. Martin's first novella ever written within the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms novella compilation here, and also the first novella he wrote for the Legends anthology collection back in August 25, 1998. And truth be told, it is one of my favorite pieces of literary fiction ever written. How so? Well, my name is The Advocate, and today I'm an advocate for reviewing The Hedge Knight novella by George R.R. Martin. So for the sake of being different, and also for a nice change of perspective, I decided to head out here to Ashford Meadows to kind of get us more in the mood for this Hedge Knight novella within the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms novella compilation. And I also decided not to script anything for this video, so if a lot of this review comes across as loosey-goosey, that's why I don't have any script except for just these couple of notes that I took here. So for those of you who don't know my history with George R. Martin's work, I've actually read the A Song of Ice and Fire main series twice before. I've also read Fire and Blood twice before. And as of 2 days ago, I've now read A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Well, I've read A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms once, and then I reread the Hedge Knight novella for the purposes of this review about 2 days ago. So I've got a pretty good head on my shoulders as to what happens within the first novella in this novella compilation. But for those of you who have never read The Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, I definitely fully recommend it. I think it is one of George R. R. Martin's finest works. It is definitely very different from the main series. The main series kind of delves into more, a larger cast of characters. It delves into grander, more scheming, more politics, whereas this one is just in every novella that I've read within The Knight of the Seven Kingdoms novella compilation thus far, which is The Hedge Knight, The Sworn Sword, and The Mystery Knight, the 3 novellas that have been released as part of this novella compilation, predominantly just follow 2 characters, a Hedge Knight named Dunk, allegedly short for Duncan the Tall, and a young squire named Egg, who could potentially be more than what he appears to be. And those are the 2 characters that you stick with for essentially the entire story. And I actually kind of like that. It's a nice change of pace from, having to follow every single character and see what they've been up to and, all the politics and scheming that are going on in Essos and Dorne and the grander gravitas that comes with the main series, which I love and adore. But this is just a nice breather. So if you've not read this novella compilation, I definitely recommend picking it up, especially if you have read the main series. So as far as the Hedge Knight novella is concerned, I have to say that it feels so cool to finally read from the perspective of a common-born person. So throughout the A Song of Ice and Fire main series, as I imagine most of you are aware, we predominantly follow the lives of the elite, the lives of the High Lords, the kings and queens, essentially the upper echelons of society. Whereas with the entire novella compilation that George R.R. Martin has written here, we predominantly follow Sir Duncan the Tall, who was born at Flea Bottom at King's Landing. Flea Bottom being kind of this, flea-ridden land of parasites where the low and impoverished and not elite live. And so following the story of someone who doesn't have as much sway within the politics of Westeros, reading from the perspective of someone who's just kind of trying to get by and doing his best with what little coin he has is quite nice. It's a refresher. Now, as far as the actual story of this novella goes, and again, this is just a review of the first novella George R.R. Martin wrote for the Duncan Egg series, The Hedge Knight, I gotta say, the story that is held within, these 100 or so pages is really wonderful. It's a very just kind of, I don't want to say cute, but it's like a feel-good, kind of a happy story, which is interesting, especially because, there's a lot of not happy things that happen within the A Song of Ice and Fire main series. But just reading through this Duncan Egg novella, I was like, just so immersed and like, wow, there's obviously, we still follow the story within the land of Westeros. But, it's so good to have a different, more fresh perspective on those lands and those holdings, because we see it through the perspective of a low common-born person, and as he's just kind of trying to build his way up in the world as an actual knight. He's trying to not be a hedge knight for too much longer and become an actual knight. And it's so cool to read. It's a feel-good story. It's very sweet and wonderful. And I'm going to delve into some spoilers here, so if you have not read the Hedge Knight novella, go read the Hedge Knight novella and then come back to this. Or if you want to wait for the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms TV show to air, watch that first, then read the Hedge Knight novella, and then come back to this. But One of the things that I absolutely adore about this novella, and by extension, or more importantly, George R.R. Martin's writing style, is that he's never really holding your hand as he's writing this book. One of the things that I've complained about other authors when it comes to their writing style is that a lot of them will have this nasty tendency to just tell instead of showing. Whenever a book tends to kind of expositorily tell you what you're supposed to feel or what you're supposed to think, it kind of insults your intelligence and it kind of just ruins the story a little bit. Whereas if someone just shows you and elaborates you a certain scene and it leaves it up for the reader to interpret their own thing of what they think this means or what they think this is supposed to say, then I think that makes for a more immersive story. And the Hedge Knight novella definitely succeeds in doing more of the showing, not telling. One of the best examples of that is the character of Egg, which is why we're here in spoilers, because Egg, if you don't already know, is actually Aegon Targaryen V. And one of the cool things, especially about the Hedge Knight novella, because in the later novellas, you're already aware that Egg is Aegon V. In this first novella, you're not really aware that Egg is the grandson of the current Targaryen king. And so when you're reading this book, there are a lot of little clues and hints that kind of, communicate to the reader that like, Egg could potentially be someone else. He could potentially be, there's something about him that tells me he's not a squire, but at the same time, it doesn't really dawn on the reader that like, this is the grandson of the Targaryen king. The predominant character trait that you're getting from Egg is that he's just a good boy. He's a good squire who's trying to do right by Dunk, his knight that he wants a squire for, the Hedge Knight that is the main character of the Hedge Knight novella. And it's so cool to just kind of see Aegon Targaryen V as a character, as opposed to as the idea of a Targaryen king or a soon-to-be Targaryen king at some point later on in history. But the reason I bring up the showing, not telling aspect about this story is because even when it is revealed that Egg is Aegon Targaryen V, it's never in your face about it. It gives you enough context clues for you to finally kind of put it together in your head that like, holy snap, Egg is actually the grandson of the current Targaryen king, not, someone telling you out loud in dialogue form, Sir Aegon Targaryen V, let me bend the knee to you, my lord who is currently disguising himself as a squire. Even here on page 74 of the American paperback version of the United of the Seven Kingdoms novella, where, Dunk finds out that Egg isn't who he claims to be. Egg doesn't explicitly say he's Aegon V. He just says, if they harm Dunk, they'll answer to my father, and my uncle as well. Let go of him, I said. And so Dunk doesn't know what's going on, and then, at the end of this page, Aerion kind of just asks Egg, like, why is Egg bald? And Egg responds to Aerion, oh, I cut off my hair, brother, said Egg. I didn't want to look like you. And so then it's supposed to finally be dawned on you without explicitly telling you that Egg is Aerion Brightflame's brother. Henceforth, Egg is a Targaryen. And so it's things like that. There's other examples within this novella where George R.R. Martin employs more of the showing, not telling aspect of storytelling. And it feels like such a refreshing change of pace because after reading, and no disrespect to these other authors, but after reading, Liu Cixin's Three-Body Problem, that one's a huge offender of telling, not showing. And even Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive series and Mistborn series, which I do like. I genuinely like those series. Man, those authors go on this nasty tendency to try to tell you how you're supposed to feel, to tell you, explicitly word by word verbatim of who certain people are, of why you should be surprised, of why you should feel a certain way. And it gets really, really irritating. But George R.R. Martin refrains from doing that, and it's so good. But as far as like the actual story of the Hedge Knight is concerned, I thought it was a very immersive story. It's a wonderful, cute story. I very much liked the subversion of expectations where you think that Dunk is, he goes through all this work of finally having someone vouch for him, of being an actual Hedge Knight. Dunk finally has the approval. He comes across, Maekar and Valar and Baelor Breakspear who allow Dunk to participate in the lists for the tourney of Ashford. So, Dunk finally goes through all that effort to be a part of this tourney at Ashford, and you're thinking like, okay, wow, this is the part where, Dunk is actually going to enter the tourney. He's going to win the tourney. He's going to get the girl, and it's going to all go really well. And then before he even gets a chance to enter into the tourney, he gets imprisoned in his cell because he attacked, rightfully so, Arion Brightflame. And it's just like, wow, way to subvert our expectations, George. Just when we're thinking that, Dunk is going to enter into the tourney, he doesn't even get the chance to enter into it. But then in a clever subversion of that subversion of expectations, the people who Dunk thought he could rely on, predominantly, Sir Stefan Fossaway, who claimed to Dunk that he was going to help him find 5 other men to help Dunk on his trial by 7 combat with Arion Brightflame and his, group of 7 people that were accusing Dunk of having attacked Arion Brightflame. Stefan Fossaway betrays Duncan the Tall, but instead of Sir Duncan the Tall being 1 man short, because Dunk eventually found 5 other people, including Ryman Fossaway, to help Dunk in this trial by 7, who should help Dunk as his 7th participant, but none other than Baelor Breakspear, the coolest Targaryen currently living within the Hedge Knight novella. And it's like, wow, okay, cool. I did not expect, Baelor Breakspear to be the one to step up and actually help fight for the people, help fight for the Commonborn, help fight for Dunk. And it's so cool. And it's like, wow, I don't know what I was expecting there at the end with a trial by 7. I figured that, okay, I think George R.R. Martin has done subverting expectations. I think Dunk is going to somehow find a way to get away with this, get away as in, win the trial by 7, because there's, 2 other novellas within this novella compilation. In addition to that, George R.R. Martin has claimed that there are going to be up to potentially 12 novellas in total for the Dunk and Egg series. So, of course, Dunk is going to live past this first Hedge Knight novella, but you don't know how he's going to get out of it. And so for it to be revealed that Baelor Breakspear is the one who helps Dunk get out of this sticky situation, it's such a clever, wonderful, kind of happy subversion of expectations, even though in a subversion of a subversion of a subversion of those initial expectations, Baelor Breakspear winds up dying from his injuries due to helping Sir Duncan the Tall. But, through the perspective of Sir Duncan the Tall, who is our only POV perspective in the first Hedge Knight novella, we get to really know the character of Baelor Breakspear, and it is through knowing Baelor Breakspear that we build an investment towards that character. So when he, steps up and helps fight alongside Dunk, we cheer for him, we rise to the occasion. We're like, yes, Baelor Breakspear, Sir Duncan the Tall, Ryman Fossaway, all the other people, yes, we're going to win. And then, Dunk does wind up eventually winning, and Arion Brightflame yields and returns his accusation that he had initially pointed at Dunk for attacking Arion in the teeth and kicking him, but it comes at the cost of Baelor Breakspear's life. And it's a very bittersweet way to end the novella, but it's a well-earned bittersweet ending to a very worthwhile novella. And even though I just delved into all the spoilers in the world for this first Hedge Knight novella, if you for some reason watch the spoilers section and have not read The Hedge Knight, then I definitely recommend you read it. So I have the American paperback version of this book. I don't quite know if other versions also have this artwork. I would assume so. But definitely try to find a version of the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms novella compilation, or if you just find the Hedge Knight, a version of the Hedge Knight novella that also has the artwork here present within the pages of said novella, because it really helps bring to life the series. Or alternatively, if you do not want to physically read this book and you want to listen to an audiobook, there's also an audiobook available that is narrated by Harry Lloyd, who was the actor that played Viserys Targaryen in the first season of Game of Thrones, who does a pretty good job of narrating the audiobook for the Hedge Knight. It's pretty short. Again, it's the audiobook for the entire Knight of the Seven Kingdoms novella compilation, but as far as the Hedge Knight novella is concerned, it's pretty short. It's only about 3 hours. So, you can listen to it within a couple hours, or you could also physically read the novella, and you should be able, again, to read it within a couple hours. So it's a light read, whilst at the same time being, quite deep and character focused and just a wonderful story all around. So that's my review of the Hedge Knight novella by George R.R. Martin within the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms novella compilation. Stick around for future book reviews. Stick around for future videos in general. I'll definitely be posting another video with regards to the Hedge Knight novella, this time looking at how the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms TV show producers could potentially be spreading out the contents of the Hedge Knight novella, because as it has been reported, it looks like the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms TV show will be 6 episodes long. And after reading this first novella, I am questioning how they're going to spread out 100 pages worth of content or 3 hours worth of audiobook content into 6 one-hour installments. It seems like they'll be padding out some things, and it's kind of got me worried, but we'll discuss that in a different video. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, The Advocate, out.